Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dirt Report. Week 3 here after some more during the week, and we want to welcome you all back and thank you for tuning in. A couple of new faces here, or rather, just one. We've got Jettcon over from Akron as our usual suspects: Taco, Miggs, JMBeast, and Klimpse. Kind of going around the screen in that order. I'm all over the place here, but welcome all of you. Jet, how you feeling? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to run through these rankings here. As always, they're spicy, they're controversial, they're all over the place, and we don't agree on them. But that's why we're here. So let's pull them up and dive right in. We don't have to waste any time. Here are your Week 3 rankings from Stage 1 of this collegiate season. Take a look. Look at all these arrows. It's a fancy graphic tonight. And Taco, I want to start with you, my friend. You had a pretty good week yourself, NC State, doing pretty well. But talk to me about some of these teams on the bottom and how they made their hike up here. Think about these bottom 5. Kennesaw State, where'd they come from?
Kennesaw State, once again, is just one of those teams that has the ability to really punch up, right? They've kind of proven in this last week that they have the ability to take on some teams that are a little bit above their weight class to a certain degree. And so they are kind of just barely peaking that top 25 space. It's going to be interesting to see how they progress as we move into stuff like Face It, where stuff really starts to hit the fan and, maybe stage 2 of CR6. But right now they're showing that they do have a lot of promise and they are just kind of floating in that kind of, bottom 5 area.
Well, let's just keep running through these bottom 5 teams. This is that group that's really changing week after week. Any team that's in open, that's proving themselves, and they jump right up into this spot. Virginia Tech, better known as Vespa, they are in that number 24th spot. Finally, actually making their showing on this list. Well, actually, wait a minute, that is completely wrong. So the green arrow, that normally means they have come up from being off the rankings. In this case, consider it a red arrow because they've dropped down from the 22nd spot, and that, of course, makes no sense. JM, talk to us about VTech at 24.
Uh, we They were off the rankings at first, but we decided that they're showing. Who did they beat this week? They had a couple. I don't
They're
think.
they're they're beating the lower
Yeah.
lower teams of each or of the Group B division in CS6.
This week, they lost twice to Texas Tech and Ohio State. 3-7 against Texas Tech on Oregon, 4-7 against Ohio State on Coastline.
Here's what I'll say about Virginia Tech. Don't mean to interrupt, but they're a team that up so far in in the season as it's been so far, CEA CR6. I think they might have had the toughest schedule out of any team that I've seen so far. They've played Converse twice. They've played Texas Tech. They've played Ohio State. They've played GCU. They're a team that their record, it really doesn't show, I think, how good they are because they've been playing some incredibly tough teams and putting up mildly impressive performances, getting 4 rounds in Ohio State, 3 against Texas Tech. Other than that, though, they've kind of been struggling in the rounds apart, but they're playing some incredibly tough teams, and they have Wisconsin Whitewater coming up. They also have Akron next week, so it's not really going to get easier for them. But once again, this is just a team that when they're being forged in these fires right now, they're kind of, they're up the creek without a paddle right now. They're in the hardest games they're probably going to have to play for quite a while. So when Face It starts, and they get to kind of, they have their legs under them and they're playing teams that don't have experience playing against those higher level teams. They're really, I think, this trial they're going through early is really going to pay dividends for them in the long run.
Also on them, they forfeited week 1 in CEA, but they've won their next 2 right after that. They play Buffalo this week, so we'll see,
That'll be a good
if
game.
they're trending up or not. But outside the forfeit, they're 2-0.
All right. Well, good to see, especially how they're shaping up. I mean, obviously, UWW, that game is going to be a forfeit. As we know, UWW cannot field a team this semester, but their game against Akron, Jettcon, eager to see what you guys have to say after encountering those Virginia Tech boys. But we'll come back to you later as we go up the list. Let's jump to 23rd. Iowa State making their first showing on this list in a while. Not in the top 25 last week. Anybody seen these guys in the last few days and why they've made this jump?
Iowa State has been so weird because so I think they got this new player named Zaxes, if I'm right.
Yes.
And he seems like he's a really good player, really like fairly well established player and stuff like that. I think something about him hopefully bringing some energy and some experience back to that team that they really lack a lot. As well, again, still we don't know if Totem wants to come back or not. If he does, that team definitely moves up. If Totem wants to show his face back in the scene. If not, they're gonna really ride low around this like lower 20s kind of area. Could even see them drop out of Premier. They've had some really rough performances. Even the Boomer CDAPS himself dropped like 9 kills. So he's pretty washed, but
You're thinking
The
of
wrong
Illinois
ISU.
State.
Wrong team.
You're,
was that
you're
the
all over
wrong
the
team?
place.
Oh no!
Yes,
Okay, I'm
so-
thinking of the wrong
tucked
ISU.
When we say
I spoiled
ISU,
it now.
Illinois State, that's Snail's team, they're bad. Now you go over to Iowa State, they are worse technically on the rankings, but they're better
They're
in
better.
all of our hearts. They're definitely better. So Iowa State, they're one of these mystery teams that pop up here and there, but they are having that inconsistent start. But Illinois, Chicago, CGC, UIC, they've been on the cusp for a while, and despite this arrow saying moving up, they didn't move up, did they? No,
they
they
did not.
actually moved down from 20th to 22nd. JM?
Yeah, well, we need a new graphic designer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Can
graphic
you-
designer Tango, you can fix it on the background if you'd like.
Oh man, I mean this is brutal. I mean you're over 2 now with the green arrows, but hey, we love to see him.
I don't like
Some more
arrows.
clarity.
this is an issue last year too.
Yeah.
This is why we did away with the arrows, because you
That's why
just
there was no
never got
arrows.
them
I
right.
don't.
Right. Okay, St. Mary's. They are at the 21 spot, and they were at the 21 spot last week. Again, ignore the arrows. But talk to us about St. Mary's and how they made their spot here.
St. Mary's is currently 3-0 in CEA. They beat St. Louis. They would have beat someone a little bit more renowned. They would have moved up a bit more. But they play Bama coming up this week in CEA. Bama is a team that gets hot and gets not. They're a team that runs Blackbeard, Shields, Lion, shit like that. But if they could pose a team that's been long-standing like them, St. Mary's could actually make a name for themselves. They're undefeated in CR6 Open as well. So meaning they haven't taken a loss in CR6 or CEA. Face is starting back up, so they're about to start playing some of those premier teams in that Face It bracket.
Well, bottom 5 out of the way. I guess the 20th spot is Cincinnati. But hey, Jettcon, don't be afraid to jump in, my friend. We got a lot of these voices. I'm tired of hearing Migs talk all the time, man. I want to hear your insight. Obviously, if you don't know these teams, you don't have to jump in.
Yeah,
but
see,
I
I
wanna
don't
hear you.
know a lot. I don't know a lot of these teams. I can't like remember playing any of these teams anytime, but like if I know anything, I'll jump in
casual
for sure.
flex that.
Yeah, he
actually
probably
been open.
has.
Too
He
busy,
just doesn't
too
remember.
busy with the big boys.
No, I'm being
Just
completely honest.
ego.
I don't remember who we played last week. So you asked me what
I
map we
did
played. and I
ask what
couldn't
map you
answer.
played.
I had no idea.
He
Yeah,
just
no
shows up
idea.
and clicks heads. That's all.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I do know
20 at
Cincinnati beat-
Cincinnati. Yeah,
I
go
do
ahead,
know
Clem.
Cincinnati beat Illinois or UIC or whatever they're called. They're like super
Uh-huh.
long name. But that's kind of the reason why they moved up to 20. They looked really strong in that game. So
Yeah, they're still undefeated in CEA Open, their Central Swiss bracket, but also the Cincinnati B team is also undefeated in the same Central Swiss of CEA Open. So either that points to the depth that Cincinnati's bringing to the battlefield and they're rolling deep over there, or maybe that just speaks to maybe the general weakness of that division. Time will have to tell. when the intermingling of teams and face it is really going to shine some light on how good they are actually.
Well, Taco, you bring up a great point about depth. Of course, the man exactly who I want to talk to this about. We can jump to number 17 really quick. We'll circle back, of course, to number 69, San Antonio. But we go to NCSU B team. Your B team, Taco, has
Mhm.
not only climbed onto the top 25, but last week they moved up to 19, and now they find themselves at that 17th spot. Shout out the green arrow that JM put next to this graphic. It is correct. Now, Taco, tell me about this jump, your B team. I mean, clearly you guys have a lot of depth, don't you?
The boys, they're undefeated up until this point. So obviously they're showing their stripes in that regard. In fact, you actually got to get a glimpse of our B team captain Babs. Show his stuff in CR6 against UAH this week on the stream with us, subbing in for us because it's our fall break and we had some players out of town, unfortunately. And luckily, our B team doesn't play in CR6, so he was able to step in for us. So that was big, and he showed up. He definitely showed that. The B team is in good hands. In his hands, he did have an unfortunate run with a claymore that I don't think we have to talk about more than probably we've already talked about with him. But yeah, I mean those guys. I think they do actually really have a lot of potential. I think they have less raw potential than they had last year. I think they might have got snubbed in the top 25, but hey, that's neither here nor there. But I think that they're starting to turn the heads that they probably should have quite a while ago, honestly.
All right. Well, speaking of turning heads, we've got an odd number on this power ranking. If you take a look at the right side of your screen, as it should hopefully pop up here in a moment, you can see a UTSA, UT San Antonio, sitting at the number 19 spot, but it looks like we had a little bit of a typo there. So the number 69 spot instead. Now UTSA moved down from the 13th spot last week, and this is a team, of course, that has well, a spotty history to say the least. Why are they continuing to drop down the ranking?
They play last week. They were ranked in the top 15. They played a top 15 opponent in CEA. Premier with MTU and CJ and Red were just running around. Ton kept it as close as he could, but he can't carry some of them. I know they were playing with a kid that's just picked up the damn mouse and keyboard for the first time ever, and he couldn't shoot back. He couldn't kill Red once. Uh, Outside of that, they played UTD in CR6 Open, and it was a letdown in performance, in my opinion. They
Yeah.
had first map
That
8-7.
was a struggle bus game.
That was a
Se-
very
second map it was like 7-2, but first map you just need a 14-2 at a team like that. Like UTD has like 3 coppers, silvers, should not be anywhere close. None of the maps should be that close.
Brutal. But as I suppose as we bridge this column on the right-hand side, this is a good a time as any to talk a little bit about those teams, Klimpse, that I know you wanted to talk about. Teams that haven't quite made it into the top 25, but are sitting right on that cusp. Just give us a few highlights.
Some of those teams right now, we're talking about some of the 3-0 teams in each league. CR6, some of the main teams that are listed here. Old Dominion, Penn State, Michigan, or Penn State's on that list, my bad. Michigan, Kent State, RMU, NJIT, some of those teams to look out in the East Division. In CR6 Central, we have St. Mary's is on there. We have Wisconsin Red, Minnesota, and then as well in CR6 West Division, we have University of Arizona and UCSD. There is also NAU that's on there, which aren't 3-0, but they're still like have been out historically a pretty good team. So that's why they're like not in there, but they are in that CR6 West Open. But so U of A, UCSD, both teams to look out for as well as we see these weeks start to go up and the stage start to end.
Yeah, the stage actually coming to, or at least the regular season of the stage ending at the end of this week. And then at least in CR6, in our world here, we're jumping into that mini major with all the premier teams and open teams combining and fighting each other. And I mean, and that's going to be awesome to see because it really does give every single open team out there, or at least the top 46, a chance to go against some of these premier teams who are already ranked and get a chance to prove themselves. But speaking of proving themselves, Penn State, now nestled in at the number 18 spot, have made a dramatic 6-point jump from the 24th spot just last week. How have they made that lift?
They look. Who did they play on Friday? But they look pretty good.
They're
Was
one
it
of the
Giant?
few teams in the
teams.
east of CEA, excuse me, that are still undefeated.
Yeah.
3 weeks into the season so far, so they're still showing that they have a lot of room to climb. I'm not sure their exact matchups, but it's just one of those teams that has historically kind of trended around this area, the high teens, low 20s. They're a team that we've seen for a while. And I think that they're maybe starting to get back to some of their former grandeur. I remember PSU was a school that was feared, especially when I started playing 3 years ago. When I was on the NC State B team, Penn State was one of those teams. I was like, we would scrim them and just they would kick our teeth in. So maybe they're starting to get back to that kind of that former glory that
Like
that
one
they've
of
had in the
those
past.
vintage teams, you would say. They've been around since season 1, season 2. They always trend up at the start, like in the fall, early couple months, then they start trending down once they start hitting playoffs, back and forth. Just how it starts at the start of the semester, you'll see them on the rise. Like right now, they're currently undefeated, also in CR6 Open. But once we hit playoffs, let's see if they can keep the trend up.
All right. Well, a good reminder to everyone tuning in that we are fully live. We're interacting with Twitch chat. So if you have any questions, drop those in. And I'll bring this up because there is an interesting debate going on in the Twitch chat right now. And that is on a couple of the teams who are not on this list and who we did not mention in even the, near that 25 spot. I've got 3 names in mind: Western Michigan, Oklahoma State, and Rutgers, who are teams that are either in CEA invite or have historically been quite talented teams, and they don't have a spot on this top 25. Anyone want to take these teams one at a time and go why they're not here on this list?
Rutgers historically, even last spring in CR6 Invite, didn't amount to much. I think they only amount maybe 1 win, and it might have been a forfeit win against like Carnegie Mellon. Currently, they're winless in a group that Mizzou dropped out of, so they are the next lowest team in there. It's NAU, Akron, uh, Rutgers, and I can't think of the last team right now.
For
And
what?
then for CA
Yeah.
Invite, and
I think
then
it's NAU, Akron, WMU, GCU,
no,
NCSU.
we're in a different group.
I think another other
Oh,
other, other
it's the other
conference.
group. Okay.
WMU, same issue. They were on a rise in the spring, but right now, if we have UTSA at 19, and they got the smoking, and a hot 2-0 is like a 14-2, 14-3 series. WMU is the weakest in that group because it's NCSU, GCU, UTSA, WMU, and MTU.
I will
Obviously,
say,
those top 3 are heavy.
speaking from experience on OKST and WMU, we've played both of these teams so far in the season. Oklahoma State was actually only just a best of 1 in CR6, but they ended up getting 4 rounds off of us, and so they're a team that definitely has the potential. But up and after that, they've just really
They
been
got 4
struggling. A
rounds on
one
you?
set they did. I believe
Man,
they
you guys
started.
suck.
Yeah, that's all right. Check the rankings.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's actually more than
I'll
you guys
quickly
got on us, JM. So
No, we got
maybe they
4.
are pretty good.
We got 4.
You got 3.
We
Went
7-0
three.
them after.
Let
Then we
me
7-0
confirm,
Oklahoma too.
confirm St. Clair got 3. So, but
Oh.
going back to Oklahoma
Good try,
State for
Jake.
just a
Good
moment,
try.
I'll read down their round count. So they lost to Oklahoma. They lost to NCSU. They got 4 rounds. They lost to Purdue. They got 1 round. They lost to St. Clair. They got 0 rounds. They beat Tulsa, who right now sit at that number 15 spot, 7-4 on Oregon, and they got 3 rounds on UAH. Yet to play Louisiana, Iowa State, and Illinois State. If they lose those games, they're in trouble. However, if they win those games, some may ask, why aren't they higher on this list? Why haven't you even considered them for that top 25 position?
I definitely think they have a better case out of the 3 teams that we're talking about right now. Western Michigan, as I was saying before JM decided to start flapping them gums, they're a team that we played last week in CEA, and I'll say this: after the first map, 3 players didn't have a single kill, and so they just really have a lot of holes right now. It looks like they're more hole than ship at this point, so no wonder they're kind of sinking. I think that Oklahoma State, I think, definitely does have a case to maybe be in this top 25. They've had an incredibly tough run at it so far. Their easiest team probably being Tulsa, and they got that win. So maybe, they're a little underrated right now, but with teams like Illinois State, Iowa State, and Louisiana, teams that I consider should be must wins if you want to make a case for being in this top 25, I think this next week, all of them, actually, they have 3 games slated for this Friday. So it's going to be a very, very big week in Oklahoma.
In my opinion, if they want to make any type of noise, they got to win all 3.
Yeah.
No 2-1, no 1-2. You got to win all 3 to make some noise.
All right. Well, let's move on to number 16, and then we can talk about Tulsa, who now jumped up to the number 15 spot on this week's power rankings. Of course, 16 is North Texas UNT. Of course, our good friend Jagged is not on broadcast to back up his boys in Texas. But do we have anything to say about this subtle move up that 2 spots?
I think they're just still standing strong. I think
I'd-
UNT has just been a really good team. I think Son of Finn has brought a lot to that team and really helped them out. And I think that team just looks good. I
I
don't
feel
think
like
there's much to say other than what we've said over the last few weeks.
I feel like they're gonna have to play some teams to start making some noise. But like right now, they're beating who they're matching up against. But even who they're matching up against are like top 100 teams, like top 75 teams. They're not teams that are making heavy noise that you could justify a big move up. They're kind of just moving up in case someone drops down.
Hopefully, once we get to the playoffs, that's what I'm really excited for. That's where we'll see this list really move up and down and stuff. Once those like okay teams aren't playing, you know, those lower, 50, 75 ranked teams, but those, top 10 teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about Tulsa? Moving on to 15, they obviously had that loss to Oklahoma State, as we spoke about, who again aren't even on this top 25. And Tulsa also played another game this week, that one against Purdue, where they actually
Looked
got
good.
5 rounds, but unfortunately lost it as well.
They
Tulsa
didn't look
irritates me,
horrible
man.
against Purdue. Sorry to cut you off, Klimpse, but they were giving them a run for their money.
Yeah,
They didn't look horrible, or they did look horrible?
They didn't. They looked really actually like solid.
Tulsa's just so
It's-
frustrating, right? Because
Yeah.
they lose to Oklahoma State, who's not even on the list, right? But then they take Purdue to max rounds, or excluding overtime, right? But they take them 7-5, so they take them 12 rounds, right? So it's like, what the hell, man? Just like figure it out.
Tulsa's a team that has shown in the past that they probably have the ability to beat just about anybody. They are definitely weaker than they were last season when they made that run deep into the Face It playoffs. But this is a team that even on their bad days has yet to lose. Like we're talking about the OKST versus Tulsa thing. OKST's got like a 1-7, an 0-7 on their record. Tulsa is yet to put up less than 4 rounds on a map. And especially in BO1s, where maybe you could start attack on a map and just get kind of behind the 8 ball. That's definitely not a bad record to have. Obviously, they've been playing some weaker teams, but getting 5 rounds on Purdue and making Purdue look, I mean, honestly, I was sitting there watching like, how did I struggle against this team so much? Because they did not look anywhere as strong as what they normally do. And I think that's definitely in part to the fact that Spaz was, I believe, 16-4 at one point. So the fact that he decided to wake up and he wasn't in his above ground pool that night and he decided to actually hop on his desk and play the game for a little while shows that Tulsa, when they're, when they're clicking, maybe when Spaz is clicking, I don't want to discount what his teammates are doing, but really at the end of the day, I think we all kind of understand what that team is or what that team consists of. And that's pretty much the guy with the 4-letter name, Spazowski. He, when he's shooting, they're an entirely different team. And I think that they can beat anyone above them. Maybe not anyone, but they can beat just about anybody above them when they're firing on all cylinders. So I think this placement here right about the middle of the pack is more of a potential pick based on what we think they are capable of, maybe not what they've proven so far.
Spaz is definitely like their X factor player, and Spaz is needed for that team to do good. I've heard a little something. They might have like a roster change incoming, so we'll see. Like they might get better, they might get worse. But if Spaz can play the game that he's capable of playing, it won't surprise me if they move up in the rankings as we get deeper in the season.
Well, I guess we'll move through these next 5, and I want to get through these next few teams a little bit quicker. And we can spend a little bit more time on our top 10 teams. But first, quickly, Illinois State, of course, a team that gets a lot of flack from this side of things. And of course, they had a brutal loss this week. Probably one of the worst losses you could ever possibly witness. 7-0 against NCSU on Oregon. And
And 5-4.
it was There were moments when, maybe you could call it a 5v4. CDAPS, the coach and not a competitive player, subbed for NCSU. The same result. Not to mention that Illinois State started on Oregon defense. So NCSU beat Illinois State 7-0, starting on the Oregon attacking side. Taco, I'll quickly, as quick as possible, go to you here and just highlight how easy was that game for you?
I feel like you're really leading me to say some things that are rude, and I don't think that's fair to Snail and the boys.
Roast Snail.
Because
Let 'em have it.
This is the time,
I've had some conversations with Snail, and it seems like they really are committed to making their team better. So I feel like me, doing anything
Yo, I'll drop it like
beyond.
Yo,
Okay,
Snail,
you can go
Snail
ahead and do that.
thinks he got the top 10 team with a bunch of top 50 talent. Like
Look,
outside
look,
of Cal,
Here's
That's
the
the thing
thing,
that's
right?
crazy. I don't think
Conveniently,
they're
Snail's
bad.
argument every week is his team throws rounds. Every
Yeah.
week has been his argument. My team just throws.
he's like, "Oh, we played with the sub, or we threw." Like, no, man. You either got it, you guys are on the same page, or don't show up to game day, man.
I think if
You
you
can
look at their
only use
individual
the
players,
my team is throwing excuse for so many weeks, and I think it's been
You
what we
guys-
played for 3 weeks now, and he's used it every match for 3 weeks.
he
So at
hasn't even
some
been on the
point-
show, and you guys are just eating him alive, man. Look, if no one's gonna stand up for Snail, I'll do it. Okay, I'll be the
Don't do
guy.
it. Don't do it.
I think if you look at players like Harabic, players like Cow, when they are having a good day, that team is dangerous. I guess maybe we caught them on a night where it wasn't a good day for them, and that's just unfortunate. I think maybe
you had
CDAPS
CNAPS on your team, man.
he came with
Taco.
Connor came with a chip on his shoulder. All right,
Taco,
he had 9
taking the high
kills.
road.
Yeah.
You need to stop taking the high road.
I'm not
Anarchy
taking the
just
high
went
road.
this
I am. I am
Anarchy
not
just
taking the
sat
high
there and
road.
spectated, man.
I
Or
mean,
not
I
Anarchy.
think Rye was like
Rye
0-1.
just
He
spectated, he
literally,
just
he
wanted to
literally
watch.
just sat there. Yeah. But I think that team has not played up to their potential. I think they have good players, and I just think that they have yet to figure it out. And if never mind. I'm going to hold my tongue because I think there's some interesting things coming down the pipeline in Redbird country. But up until then, I think they're a team that can beat any team below them and even challenge some teams above them in this ranking. So I think that they're pretty comfortable where they are.
They
You know
have
what, I'm
potential,
gonna
but they
step
don't bring
in.
it together.
I'm gonna step in and leave it here for ISU. I think we've given them enough. But yes, Migs, like you were saying, yeah, they have a lot of work to do. But curiously enough, they do just enough to prove themselves that they can hang somewhere in the middle each week. Let's move through 12 and 13 rather quickly. They haven't seen a ton of either Louisiana or NAU in this last week. Louisiana, of course, beating Illinois State, as we just discussed, 7-5 on Cafe, but then losing to Iowa State, who are the 23rd spot on this list, 7-2. So this is a team that is extremely inconsistent. I mean, they got 5 rounds against UAH. They beat Tulsa. They were fine against St. Clair and okay against Purdue, but they're kind of all over the place. How are they number 13?
In my opinion, that's a team that just relies on gun skill between Fantastic and Turtle. Outside of them two, you can't expect much shooting consistently. And then they're gonna rely on gun skill against the teams they play, and against teams that are structured, they're gonna lose. Iowa State played them structuredly in their match. That's why they lost. In Illinois State, they kind of ran cow strats that are a bunch of rank strats. They obviously got the win just based on gun skill.
Yeah,
Alright.
Illinois State, Iowa State, and Louisiana kind of have a weird bit of rock, paper, scissors going on right now, Rochambeau, depending on where you're from, where Illinois State is taking the win against Louisiana, but losing to Iowa State. Iowa State's losing to Louisiana, but beating Illinois State. So this just kind of shows right now, anywhere on this ranking from 11 to 25, shoot, probably even down to 30 for all you unseen heroes down there trying to make your way up onto these rankings. It's pretty fluid right now. These teams are just moving all over the place, and it just depends on what teams can kind of put together a couple strong weeks, right, of consistent good play. That's what's really going to move you up in these rankings, because right now it's the whole win one, lose one. Oh, we had a tough week. Oh, we had an off game. That's the nature of the best of one system right now in CR6 Premier. That's what's really going to show the teams that are more consistent. If you can bring it every week in a best of one and show that you're the better team and not have those off days, that's when you're going to start moving up the rankings.
It hurts those teams that directly counter strat. I feel like the
Yeah.
BO1 like really hurts a team like Kettering, right? Because Kettering, which we'll get to them, but they counter strat a lot. That's why you saw them do so well throughout playoffs last year and stuff like that. So they're struggling, right? And there's the other teams that like directly will counter strat that just cannot keep up because of that.
Well, Klimpse, you brought it up, so we'll go straight there. Let's talk Kettering. They had a brutal week this week. A big tester, Converse and GCU in the same week, 7-1 against Converse, 7-3 against GCU. They sit still at this number 11 spot, holding the same position they did last week. Why no movement?
They had some tougher opponents, and they're still winning against the teams that they should be winning against. But they're not beating teams that are higher than them. So they're kind of just sitting in their same boat, same spot. There's no reason to really move them up or down. There's nothing that they're not expected to beat Converse or GCU, and they're not you know especially that BO1 format. It's just hurting them a lot. I think. Last year they ended up beating us and knocking us out of the CR6 playoffs, and this year, they can barely get a couple rounds script together. But it was a good game overall, and there's not much you can really do with them. They're kind of just stuck where they are.
In my opinion, like the issue with Kettering goes all the way through number 19. They're all like, or even all the way up to 25. They're all like rock, paper, scissors, like Taco was saying with the other three. They kind of all beat each other. They kind of all lose to each other. Realistically, like if we're comparing to spring rankings or teams that we had in this past spring, all these teams would be bottom 25, anywhere between 11 to 25 now, because these teams aren't putting up numbers, but they're also not either getting blown out or blowing other teams out. They're all kind of struggle busting that you can't really move them up or down. We're gonna have to wait for face the best of threes to kind of adjust from there.
All right, well, let's jump to number 10 here and finally really move in and get to let's get a bit spicier when we get to these top 10. So St. Clair, of course, on that edge of that top 10, just at that 10th spot. And I was running through their match history. Of course, this week, a tough loss to Purdue, 7-4. But aside from that, the previous weeks, they haven't had a victory against a strong opponent that really solidifies that they should be even further up this top 10, hence a one position drop to that 10th spot. Why are they still hanging around here? And JM, I mean, feel free to chime in here. Do you see yourselves beating Tulsa and UAH in the next week? Or do you see yourself struggling again?
Where we're at, we have a little bit of issues with the top teams, just getting into the new format of college, because these are 3 out of 5 guys first time playing college, so we're still adjusting to the play style like of the Purdues, the NCSUs, and stuff like that. But I think our play style will beat all the Ketterings, the Tulsas, and everything like that. That our play style is a lot more advanced.
Well, suppose we can move ahead to Texas Tech here. And this one, Jettcon, I will throw it directly to you. At number 9, Texas Tech, you guys played them this week, a 7-4 win against them on Clubhouse. What did you see in your opponent this week that justifies that they're 9th position here?
What I saw is a bit upsetting compared to what I saw last semester. They are not, they're not the team they used to be. I don't think so at all. I don't see these guys being like top contenders in collegiate this semester. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if their guys don't play the game as much anymore or if they just don't seem to care, but they definitely do not compete the way they used to. That's what I know.
4 rounds, Jet? Are you sure? Jet? They got 4 rounds on you.
And
Trust me,
some
Taco,
could
I'm
say
sure.
the same about Akron.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah, I
Well,
just don't
who
see
else?
Texas
Yeah.
Tech competing as well this year because they don't play the game as much together. They still look like they'll beat those teams that like they can beat,
I
but
agree.
I don't see them stepping it up and being that top 5 team we all wanted them to be. We all expected them to be this year.
Yep.
Skill wise, they got it.
Like
Bring
they
it
could
together
do
as
it.
a-
They just
as
have
a
to play the
team,
game.
they don't
man.
have it.
If they played the game and practiced a little bit, I see them as a top 5.
I mean, I will say I know they do scrim. I don't know how often, but
Do they?
we've scrimmed them a couple times, and I don't think that they're as bad as maybe what they
No.
show up on game day. I think the biggest showing was that recent loss to Ohio State. I think that's a game that they shouldn't lose. I think that
Oh yeah.
Texas Tech is better than that, especially their top 3 players, whoever El Goblino is, that guy has cooked me a couple of times.
That's
Yeah,
canned.
Yeah, I think
Canned
that
is
guy. I think that
ridiculous.
guy is good. I don't think he's as good as Buck or Bait yet, but I think that he can be a real force when he's on. But I think that team is again one of those teams that should move up as we go later down in the semester and moving on to the next semester. But right now they just haven't proven it yet.
On paper, I would take their players over Ohio State's players.
Yeah.
Just naturally on paper, but bringing it as a team, Ohio State's obviously bringing it together as a team as a whole. Where Texas Tech either they're having some congruence, some chemistry issues.
I don't know about that Ohio State thing though, because we played them this week and it was, I don't know, it was a weird game.
They're a weird team.
It didn't feel like it was on Clubhouse and it was a 7-4, I think.
You playing against Ohio State?
We played against Ohio State, and it was
Okay.
just such a weird game. It felt like the most relaxed game like we ever played. Now, it was our first game this season with all 5 GC players on the main roster, which is about time. But and maybe that's why it just felt weird. It felt more natural of a game. But Ohio State, I don't know. It was just it looked like a rougher game. From them, I expected it to be a more competitive game, especially after we played them last year.
Well, funny that you mentioned OSU because this week, at least, it seems as though we are going to get them on stream for the first time in quite a while.
Oh,
We're
no.
hoping to get their match
Oh,
against
no.
Akron at 8 p.m. And as if on cue, the Twitch chat has lit up with OSU copy pastas, which of course you love to see. And hopefully we'll get to see some of their gameplay rather than their Twitch chatters on Friday and their match against Akron and actually see how they stack up against one of these big boy teams. We've kind of addressed Ohio State, that number 8 position, during this conversation about Texas Tech. So that means we can jump right up to the number 7 spot of UAH. And this week was the test for them. They played our number 1 seed, NCSU, and they didn't look the best.
Ooh.
They only got 2 rounds, and NCSU were playing with one of their B team members on that main roster. They had a sub in play. Taco, you could speak quickly about them if you'd like. What did you see about UAH, and do you think they truthfully deserve this 7th spot?
I really think they do. I think their play style, especially on defense, is something that's going to beat a lot of teams that aren't prepared for it. Every morning I wake up and thank my lucky stars that we got defense first on Villa, because if we had to deal with all of their bull crap on attack first, it probably would have been a nightmare. We did win both of our attacks when we ended up playing against them, but you know, there's not much that they can do as a team on attack that's different. I thought that the new flash mechanic was going to be a lot more potent for them than it ended up being, but a map like Villa with such long lines of sight, it's really tough to take full advantage of that. So I think that played into our favor a lot. If we took them to Oregon, I felt like we would have seen a certain Candela toting operator make her presence a lot more known. But I will say I do think that they are a team that can beat just about anybody. They made Akron look like a bunch of washed pansies. So
Yeah,
I think
that
that they
hurts
definitely.
because you guys suck and you guys beat them, and that one like that one makes my stomach hurt. Like, ugh.
It wasn't even close. John.
I know, I know,
Get
I
a
know.
map.
Yo, attack a
Dude.
turn on that Cav, bro. Go brazy. Good thing
It
Taco didn't
hurts.
have to fear it.
But yeah,
Well,
I just to wrap it up, I do think they are a team that is very deserving of this number 7 spot. They have shown that they can beat the top teams, and they have also shown that they can lose to the top teams. So it's just
Yo,
a
shoulda
matter
scrummed
of
more.
it's just a matter of how that translates to best of 3s in playoffs.
All right. Well, we are nearing that top 5. Before we get there, one more team to go through: Michigan Tech, MTU, Red, and CJ. They're runners and gunners themselves. They can tear some pretty big teams apart, but they also have some unfortunate losses to speak of this season as well.
MTU, I'll just say it. We've talked about them as being the CJ and Red show for quite some time. I think their other players are really starting to step up.
Thank you.
Yes,
Oh my god.
100%
thank
this
you.
year. 100% this
You
year.
disagreed with me last week, Jake.
Yeah, no,
You
I scrimmed them this week.
disagreed.
We scrimmed them this week, and
last week.
TKLV went crazy against UTSA.
Klimpse.
And now you turn around and say they're not. No, it's,
Look,
I'm
Jake's
so
showing that
angry.
he's willing to change his mind. He's
Oh,
willing to
I'm
admit that
so-
maybe he was a bit hasty in his decision.
I argue with
Uh,
you.
If I
20
remember
minutes
correctly,
last
on a
week,
map,
bro. I
I
want
wanna say
that
it was
20
map
minutes
1.
back.
TKLV, CJ, and Red all had double digits, if not 15 each, against UTSA on map 1, I think.
And one
And-
correction worthwhile: MTU, because they're only in CEA, they only play 4 matches in like 4 months, and so they've played
Oh,
they played 3 games and they lost only 1 to NCSU. That was a not too bad actually. It was 7-3, 7-5 on Oregon and Villa. So NCSU winning that one, but since then MTU has beat GCU in a nice barn burner overtime on Villa, and then they swept through UTSA with relative ease, 7-2 to 7-3. So they haven't really had multiple losses, just that one loss to speak of.
MTU is one of those teams that can beat anybody. I think top to bottom, they can beat just about anybody in collegiate when they're firing on all cylinders. And if a team can't kind of corral those two, entry fraggers, then they really do get in trouble. And when those other players are starting to get into the mix, that's a team that is going to, I think, make a pretty deep run and probably shock some people as they go pretty far into these playoffs. But again,
they're gonna upset some good teams.
for a team that has, I'll just say this, and I guess we kind of have a reputation for a collegiate team that practices quite a lot. I will say this, for a team that is only in CEA invite and a team that is only going to play 4 matches from the beginning of September to about mid-October, they're practicing and they're scrimming a decent amount. So I think that's going to pay them dividends. Maybe feel free to disagree if you'd like, but I think that that's going to really help them in the long run.
It will, yeah. I totally agree with I've scrimmed them 4 or 5 times already this year, and they're just always looking, Mr. CJ.
Grinders.
They are.
Grinders.
They're grinding more than talking.
CJ do be striking fear in tier 2, tier 3 players. Just saying.
He's back in that FPLC grind. So
That too.
let's see how long till he gets removed. Hopefully not. But
All right. Well, we've jumped here to the top 5. Before we get there, another reminder. Hey, if you have any questions, drop them in Twitch chat. We are reading this, and as you have seen, Klimpse dropping his message in there every 2 seconds. We are also interacting live with Twitch chat. So, as we get into this top 5, make sure to drop some questions. And the "can you hurry" question is the only one that's not cool. All the others are absolutely welcome. Now we'll head to number 5 as we finally get here into this area. And GCU, as it's fitting, Klimpse, your boys are in the top 5 spot. They haven't budged from last week, and the line on the screen is correct, sitting here at the 5th spot. Why no change?
we didn't play anyone above us, and we won the games we were supposed to win pretty well. So we played with our full roster this week, finally. And we had to bribe some of our players that if they wanted to play Smoke, we had to 7-0 Ohio State. That didn't happen, so they didn't get to play Smoke against Kettering. But it was still a fun game. We played well. I think if we have all 5 players, I'm telling you, even if Carlito is still dropping 12, because that fool was crazy. He can still shoot everybody, but just the comfort of all 5 of us, like on our main roster being together, it is a different team. And that team is like the team last year, and we will still, get those big wins. So we play
and any bomb chassis this week?
as long as
anybody laying
someone's
down behind a
going
half
throwing
wall?
on bombs,
Yeah.
we'll be okay, I think. I don't know who we play this week, even honestly, but
I think it's us. I think it's actually us this time.
we play you guys on CEA, so
On
we
Wednesday,
are.
yeah.
We are gonna
That
have
sucks.
a sip, I think, though, but that'll be a fun game.
All right, good test for the boys.
Maybe
from GCU.
we'll beat Taco out, and all of a sudden things will swap.
Yo,
All
C-Dub's
right.
about to
If
play.
CDAPS is playing, it's 100%.
I will say this:
No,
it's our fall break, so we're not going to be able to scrim for 5 days. So
Wow.
I
Oh,
think
man, they're dying
yeah,
inside.
We're gonna be
5
going
whole
through
days.
withdrawal, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, the rashes have already started to form. It's pretty
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah, it happens. All right, so everyone else, all these other teams in this top 4 have not moved from last week, but we can talk about their matches from this week and anything we learned in Jettcon. I'll toss this to you first to talk about your own team, Akron. They're sitting at this number 4 spot, the same thing as last week, but the week before is where Akron, hit that lowest point ever on the rankings, that 6 or 7 spot, but have since regained that I'm not going to say former glory because you're not there yet, but you're still at this 4th spot. How are your games this weekend? Do you think this is where you belong?
Uh, to be honest with you, I don't think this is where we belong. I don't think we've beaten any like notable like good teams. This so far, it's been a different season for us this year. It's hard. It's been a struggle, but I think I'm ready to play some of these better teams and actually see where we stand once we get a little bit more ground under our feet. But I'm excited. I want to prove ourselves again.
All right. Anyone else have something to say about Jets team, Akron?
They've beat everyone they should have beat, and I think they've only lost to Converse notably recently. Other than that, this should be the week that we really see if they're back or if you guys are going to start pushing down a little bit more again.
Well, Megs, you mentioned Converse, and that's who we'll go to next. Sitting here at number 3, a team that has a pretty interesting schedule coming up. They've got a doubleheader against Texas Tech and OSU, both teams who sit here at that 8th and 9th spot within that top 10. So some testers, some ones that, may make Converse sweat a little bit. But why are they still at this 3rd spot?
They've yet to lose, right?
Yeah.
All the way through the CR6 qualifier, which I mean, we'll count.
Other than apparently against
we'll kind of
Purdue.
count. I guess, yeah.
In that league.
That legendary Purdue game that
No one
is
ever really
shrouded
knows
in
about.
mystery.
No one heard about or saw, but
Yeah, but apparently that happened. But we'll have to see how they stack up against Purdue maybe when we get into playoffs. But they have Texas Tech, who they have beaten in the CR6 qualifier 7-3 on Villa. So they kind of made quick work of those boys. Maybe we'll see if they can kind of turn that around. And Ohio State is once again a team that's shown that they can beat the top teams. So these are 2 difficult games. That being said, it seems like Converse is not a team that gets shaken easily. They have a lot of confidence. They have a lot of talent. And so obviously, if you're not going to lose a game, then it's really hard to drop you below number 3. If anything, they may be knocking on the door of number 2, considering how Purdue has struggled recently. Again, they struggled against Tulsa. They lost to us, which 8-7, how much you count that? I was kind of going nuke that game. So that's not their fault. So I'll just say that I think Converse has a case to be even higher on this list than they already are, and I think that this is a great week to prove that.
Well, Purdue, after all, the team that we've mentioned several times in this conversation because of they've served as a fantastic, mediator between all these top teams, getting to compare them against a team like Purdue. But Purdue, since week 1, have stuck on this 2nd spot. Why are they still here? And do they have anything that we can look forward to this week?
Other than struggling against Tulsa, I think there's no reason for them to move down. They're still consistent. They're still the same old Purdue that we know.
I'll say this. In the Tulsa game, I don't know how much all you guys watched it, but Mila was their bottom fragger, and that's something that I think is pretty rare. So maybe he was just having an off day, and that was kind of putting an excess load on those other players that weren't really ready for it. But I think that's a team that 7-5. I think that maybe they just started on a side they didn't like. Maybe they have a map that they didn't really enjoy. This is their 2nd time playing Chalet, but or actually 3rd time playing Chalet. So maybe they do like that map. And in fact, I'm just talking directly out of my butt. That being said, I think that they're a team that obviously has a very impressive pedigree, but we'll have to see. They play UAH this week. They also play Illinois State, and they play Iowa State. So they have one tough game coming up this week against UAH, and we'll have to see how they handle that because UAH is a team that can kind of pull the wool over a team's eyes, especially in a best of 1. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that.
All right, well, Taco, I know you just finished with your spiel there, but I've got to come back to you because here we are at the top of the rankings for week 3 of play here at Collegiate R6, and it is, of course, North Carolina State University. Taco, a team that is near and dear to your heart. Talk to me about your performance this week. You had, as we talked about, a tester of a week. You played UAH, a team that you just mentioned is very strong in the best of 1s, but I gotta say, with 2 games to play, you only dropped 2 rounds this entire week?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it was a pretty good week for us. We still have GCU to deal with on Wednesday before we actually start getting to the meat of it with CR6 playoffs. But up until this point, things have been going pretty well. I think if anything, I think we're still getting better. Predator is someone that I think started the season pretty slow, but he has just continued to improve his confidence and his ability to gel, especially working with a new IGL with Rai. We're a team that is just going to continue to trend upwards, I think. I'm just sitting here waiting for our first loss because I know that it's in us. I've seen me play and I know how garbage I am. So the fact that we haven't lost yet just really speaks to, I think, just how garbage collegiate is in general. If we're the number one team, we are awful.
There's something wrong. There's something
there's
extremely
a
wrong
real
somewhere.
problem if we're at the top. So please, someone knock us down. I'm
Please.
tired.
I'm waiting.
Because there's nowhere for us to go but down. So I'm just enjoying the ride while we're here. But I think that the boys and I are not done making noise. So I'm really looking forward to what the future holds.
Jett, I'm going to throw a question to you here. You have consistently said throughout the night that NCSU are bad. Now, tell me, why do you think that? And is there any team in collegiate right now that could prove you wrong? Or prove you right, I suppose?
I think any team can. I don't know. I just think NCSU's been getting really lucky. We've had a couple warm-up streams with them, and it's atrocious what they get away with. It's absolute. It's a crock of shit, Jay. I'm telling you right now. I'm tired of these guys being number one, man. I've had enough of it.
All right.
It's I can't sleep at night.
Jett wants it back.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have still a long way to go, still a long way to climb to the top. And you guys, I'll give you a moment to think about any last questions, any last talking points you want to get out. Because one pretty consistent a question from everyone in chat is like a little bit more info about the stage progression here at Collegiate R6, really the entire unified collegiate system that we've got. So to give you a quick breakdown here, I'm pulling up the schedule right in front of me just to make sure I don't screw up any of these dates. But the way each stage works, it's broken up into roughly 10-week segments, 4 weeks of regular season. And in the case of Collegiate R6 specifically, a 6-week mini major with the combination of premier teams and open teams. This stage, for example, this is our last week of a regular season play that'll end on Saturday. You go into next week, and that is when the mini major begins. The round of 64, knocking it down one round each week, all the way until the finals at the end of October. The same progression will happen for stage 2 and stage 3. In stage 2, that is when the Unified Collegiate Championship or the R6 Collegiate Championship preseason will begin. That's going to start up as well, and all of these leagues are going to be going at the same time. We're going to have so many games to keep track of, so many teams playing, everybody. It's going to be a mess, but it is going to be a fantastic time. So all of this information can be found in the Discords. I'm looking at the Season 7 info channel right now to get this information I'm reading out towards you. All of the info can be found in there, specifics and all the dates. So give that a look if you have any questions about Collegiate R6 specifically. Now, do you guys have any additional talking points you want to get out there? Does Twitch chat have any additional questions before we wrap up the night?
I will say teams 11 through 25 got to get it together. And even the next undefeated batch of teams, you got to start beating some teams with some notability. Just because you're beating Joe Schmo University from middle of nowhere USA is not credibility to vouching yourself. That team could be ranked 257. Like, if you're beating teams like Purdue that's in CEA Open, UTSA that's in CR6 Open,
or bringing at least good rounds against them, like be competitive.
Yeah, put up
don't let
score
every
lines.
round be flawless, right? If you're gonna get flawless every round, like you're just never gonna make this.
Just hit a clip, post it on Twitter, start talking some shit, man. You gotta get something going.
Get the chaos going.
Like, for real.
Play in more than one league. If you're playing in one
Clip
league, it's
Jettcon.
too small to sample size.
Yeah.
I will say this: if you want to be one of those teams that is moving up, great opportunity coming up in, I believe, 2 weeks, CR6 playoffs. If you are in that top, what is it, 46 open teams, something like that, top
UWW.
47 open teams, due to all that, then this is your chance, because you're going to be playing, if you're one of the bottom seeded teams from a CR6, you're going to be playing one of the top teams. So you got to be ready to bring it. And this is your chance, because let me just speak from on the record here. Let me just speak from my experience. All of these top teams were all garbage. You can beat us. I believe in you way more than you believe in yourself. So
any team could beat any team.
Get out there, get to scrimming.
Right now,
at least 2 maps 6-6. The amount of looking for scrim one map game day things I see makes my stomach turn. I need
It
you to
is
get
actually
2
the
map
worst.
6 in. Playoffs are going to be best of 3, I think. Maybe later in the playoffs. Maybe the other ones are best of 1. I don't know.
think
Playoffs
it's
are going to be
all
best of 3. You got to be used to play the game for at least an hour and a half at a time before you start to get bored. Get off TikTok, get off Twitter, and just scrim for a little bit longer. Please, I'm begging you for your own good. Otherwise, don't say jack squat about being in this top 25 because you have no grind, you have no talent, and anything, you're just wasting my time. You're wasting internet, you're wasting oxygen, you're wasting food. We're running out of food, people. The animals are dying. I'm done.
Taco.
Sorry. It's just,
Breathe,
it's
breathe,
so
breathe,
absurd.
please, Jet,
It's
Jet,
so
breathe.
absurd.
But to piggyback on Taco, I think some of you guys, I don't know how much like some of these teams scrim, but I think some of you guys will see an insane amount of benefit from actually practicing, playing with your team, and playing the game correctly. You guys will see so much from that.
Well, anyone else want to squeeze in a last word?
Like I said, play in more than one league. That's not getting you exposure at all. Not even getting the scene exposure at all.
Just play the game. Have your
Yeah.
team play the game together, even
Playing
in
the
ranked
game.
and stuff
Scrim.
like that. Understand, scrim, yeah, do all that. Like if you want to be good, dedicate yourself, dedicate time.
And
I
stay out
wish
of
we
all
dedicated
chat.
more time to the
Unless it's
game. We
Klimpse.
don't.
Stay out of all chat. There you
Stay
go.
out
Unless
of all
it's against
chat.
Klimpse, then you can talk shit.
Yo,
All
all
right,
chat will
well-
be screenshotted.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
my job is to plant the bomb and call it a day.
All
It's a
right.
mood.
Well,
It's a mood.
we got the demand to scrim, the demand to practice, but more than that, please stream your games. We really want to see all these games, especially if you're one of these teams in that 26 to 30 spot. You know you're right on the cusp. We want to watch you play, and the only way to do that is if you stream your games. If you don't have an
Miggs had
observer, if you
24
don't have a
tabs pulled up.
caster, no worries. Just
Klimpse
stream your
and
own
Jake were in a
perspective.
VC with me. I had 24 tabs open.
Yep.
We were
Yes,
watching
we're
the matches.
getting the tabs open every stream we're opening. Find one of the Discords or all of them and just drop that link in either the streams channel, the self-promo channel. Get that link out there so we can find those and watch those games. And if we miss them, yell at us, drop us a DM. We're all in the Discords. Make sure we see these teams and they're getting the proper exposure. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. We hope to see you next week. We're going to have some special guests in the coming weeks. We're going to change things around here and hopefully give you the Dirt Report content that you're all looking for. So thanks again for tuning in and have a fantastic rest of your night and a great week. So long, everyone.